Hi.
Ah! Ah! So,
Guys, go whole audio. Guys, our reactions to the last
yes.
2 episodes of Infinity Train Book 3.
I mean,
just us screaming.
We could say more with actual words for the English language, but I think that just screaming is a natural response to what has been witnessed.
My God. So we actually did get, first off, there's lots of things that are still not answered, but we also did get a lot of answers to questions I never asked and never wanted to know the answer to, but we got them anyways.
Yeah, like, I was curious how they were going to wrap up so much in 2 episodes, but the thing that impresses me about the show...
They went out with a bang.
Oh,
bang,
they did?
Bang, bang.
And they're really good at economical storytelling with saying a lot in just a short number of episodes.
I'm so upset right now. We're not even a minute into the audio. We've already spilled our guts onto the table. So, do we just want? What do we want to start with? Because there's a lot.
Yeah, like we just watched it.
Yeah.
Like the other times there was a little bit of a gap for us to sort of process.
Yeah.
But this time, I mean, I don't know how long it would take to process anyway, so we may as well go in fresh. I don't think you can. I agree.
It's not even like a thing. Spoiler, by the way.
Oh yeah, we should probably say that.
I was about to say something major. If you have not watched all of Book 3, including the last 2 episodes, you can click off now. Anyways, Simon's death was fun. But what I was saying is, at least with, Mace's death in Season 2, I knew he was gonna die. I had seen online, people being like, oh my god, Mace's death was so... And I'm like, what?
Spoilers!
So, at least I knew he was gonna die, and, I had heard it was kind of, graphic, so I had, mentally prepped myself for it, and I had already even seen, some screenshots, so I was ready for, the gruesome. I was not, however, ready for this.
For Simon to die, and to die so hard.
Anyways, let's go back to the episode beforehand, because I feel like that also had a fair bit to unpack. Grace's childhood. Also... before we jump to that, Hazel and Amelia have an interesting dynamic.
They do.
Because Amelia created Hazel. We already know that. That's not new news. That was pretty much confirmed the moment she turned into a turtle. I think,
exactly.
Episode 5.
As soon as we found out that she was turtle enough for the Turtle Club.
Yeah, I bet you've just been waiting to make that.
No, it actually just now occurred to me, and I'm very, very amused.
Oh, I'm so disturbed.
I was very pleased with myself as soon as it did occur to me. Trust me, if that had occurred to me earlier, I would not have had the patience to wait to say it. I would have said it as soon as it occurred to me, no matter when it did.
If you don't know what Dad is referring to, that's a whole other can.
Look up the trailer for the apocalyptically terrible movie Master of Disguise. With its iconic scene in which comedian Danny Carvey asks what we all need to ask ourselves at some point through life: am I not turtly enough for the Turtle Club?
Oh my god. I'm so upset right now. Anyways, back to Infinity Train. This got knocked off course very far. Hazel and Amelia have a very interesting dynamic because Amelia made Hazel. Again, not new news. We already know this. We knew this from the end of episode 5, and then it got confirmed basically as soon as Amelia learned that Hazel was part turtle. They have an interesting dynamic because Amelia was like, I'm not your caretaker. And I'm like, well, you literally made her. That's a pretty crappy thing to say.
It is, but at the same time...
Hazel needs therapy.
She does, but... and it also is very...
characters need therapy.
It's very telling how Grace cried a lot when they parted, while Hazel was actually quite cold, and who can blame her? The Apex were not exactly great friends to her, now were they?
Yeah.
And Grace, and even though obviously...
I feel like in each season there's some part, usually towards the end, where 2 characters get separated and there's a lot of crying.
Yes, but...
Atticus's death, lots of crying.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse when he left and, couldn't come with, lots of crying. Yes, lots of crying.
Mm-hmm.
There's always separation, crying, and then the end of the show.
But it's noteworthy that both the previous times they got reunited, while in this one, did not happen.
Yeah, because Atticus came back,
yep.
and Jesse went back on the train, but we don't know what happened to Hazel and Amelia after they left.
Yep, and again, like I said, it's noteworthy that Hazel was not all heartbroken to be saying goodbye to Grace like Grace was, because, like Grace, she dropped the ball with Hazel entirely. Like, every single, obviously she was not as, downright monstrous as Simon was.
Oh, yeah, Simon.
Yes, it's not...
We'll get to him a little later when we get to, the final episode and the final scenes.
I mean, Simon has established himself as literally the worst person in the show by this point. So... It's
not even like Mace and Steve, where first off, they actually have a reason. It's because that's, literally their job. They're just doing their job. And also, they're, likable villains. Simon's just a monster, and I hate him.
Yes. So even though, yes, Grace was obviously not as bad as Simon, that doesn't matter. Somebody can be not as bad as Simon and still be a terrible person.
Yeah.
And even though Grace...
that's like saying that because Jeffree Star isn't as bad as Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star's a saint. He's not a saint.
Exactly. And the thing is, Grace, even though she is absolutely well on her way to redeeming herself and has come a real long way, she absolutely failed Hazel utterly. And that's just the truth of it. And the show did not sugarcoat it or give Grace a moment of, a cathartic moment of being accepted or forgiven or redeemed in the eyes of Hazel. She messed up, and all she can do is try to not mess up again in the future. But Hazel's she could have had this really precious bond, and...
All these characters need therapy. Every character from every season needs therapy. Even Simon needed therapy before he died.
But instead of therapy,
a lot of therapy.
He got a cult. Womp womp.
And a very disturbing death scene. Anyways.
Yes.
So...
Grace's childhood, I thought, was, well done, interesting stuff that certainly gave insight into who she was. Grace, she was
Also, I like how that one character is voiced by Jasper's voice actor.
Yes. That was a good little moment.
Yeah, we're like, we recognize that voice. Unlike in Voltron, where Laura or whatever her name is, and we're like, I'm sorry, she's voiced by Jasper? No. I don't accept it. That was a fun little...
It was a little... They're like, oh yeah, Jasper.
I also noticed that throughout all her memories, first off, they were, very distorted. To the point where, with Tulip's memories, some of them were, kind of weird, and you're like, why is there weird, creepy mumbling, and whatnot, but, at least that, it was, mostly coherent, but a lot of the things in Grace's memories, I was like, this just feels off.
Yeah, but
there was,
Grace...
a weird, VHS tape, almost, effect over the whole sequence.
Yeah, but, Grace is older, sort of thing, so the childhood memories are fuzzier, and she spent... probably, maybe even the majority of her life, depending on how old she is, on the train, which I'm sure does interesting things to your perception of time and memories and all that.
Oh, I'm sure. God. Yep. Jesus. So that was a lot. There was one little thing that kind of got answered that I had kind of wondered about, which was what do people look like when they're in the memories? Because we saw her eyes kind of glazed over, and also what happens if you get trapped in your memories.
Yep, that was...
as early as season 1, the cat was well, if you look into somebody else's memories, it's fine, but I tried to trap you in your own memory and I was like, well, what would happen if she didn't escape? We kind of got to see the beginning of that.
We did?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was a good episode that answered a lot of stuff and really gave a better understanding of why Grace turned out the way she did with her beliefs and her behavior and everything.
Also, we got to see what happened with the cat abandoning Simon.
We did.
I was like, are we actually going to see this whole scene play out at some point? Because they keep referencing it, but we haven't actually seen what happened.
And we got it, and... Oof. And so, so Grace saw herself as being saved by the, who she thought was the conductor and everything, and formed a whole cult around that. And then she herself went on to become a savior to Simon, and
I like how Simon's kind of adventure on Infinity Train started with him almost getting killed by a gnome, and it ended with him being killed by a gnome.
It's like a poem, it rhymes. is a line that George Lucas said about one of his own movies once that everybody found kind of funny. He's like, what? Really?
What?
Okay, Lucas. I mean, it does, you know? Listen, if something happens
It's like
multiple
a
times
poem,
in a
it
story,
rhymes.
it's like a poem. It rhymes.
I need that audio bite to become a thing. It's like a poem, it rhymes. Okay?
Perfectly timed.
It's so good. This little podcast type series is a gold mine.
It truly, truly is.
So like if somebody actually listens through, they could get some pretty good.
This is quality content. Quality content here.
It's like a poem, it rhymes. Okay. Anyways.
The mark of a good podcast is how much empty air there is.
No. No? Dad? You good?
I'm giving empty air to the podcast.
No. Please, no.
Okay. Moving on.
Alrighty, then. Okay.
So.
We've gone very off base. This is about Infinity Train. I don't know how we got here.
I'll do it again later, so it'll be like a poem.
Please
Now then.
don't.
So, in addition to giving some good backstory with Grace, I also found the end with her, you know, showing her trapped her own memories with that creepy blank look on her face.
That was
and
horrifying.
Simon just being a total creepo.
Yeah,
leaving her there and
Simon's
even
the
knocking her over.
worst.
That was
He's
a really, really
I
chilling,
like how
creepy
he
ending.
already had a dumb haircut, and then he was like, I'm gonna take my dumb haircut and make it dumber.
Yes, moving on to the final episode now. I will just say one quick note. I truly, truly believe that his final boss form in the last episode was based on Liquid Snake from Metal Gear Solid 1. I'm right about this. I'm entirely confident, and if it wasn't too late to do the whole Reddit Ask Me Anything thing, where they got to ask the creator questions, I would ask them, hey, that was Liquid Snake, right? Between you and me? And he wouldn't want to shock the world too much by openly admitting it, but he would send me a private, secret message confirming it's totally Liquid Snake. Totally.
Okay.
We can move on now.
Please.
Liquid Snake.
Okay, so final episode of Infinity Train. I was kind of concerned. I was like, how are they going to wrap everything up? Like, there's so many open questions.
But they're good. They're really good at economical storytelling and really, you know, making
First
the most
off,
of each episode.
might I just say that everything, like, while we were watching, we kept having Wi-Fi issues. I don't know if it was because Dad was downloading something on the Xbox One, or I don't know why, but it kept, like, at random intervals, it would just pause.
Mm-hmm.
So, not only was the part of her pulling out the tape out of her head, which when I saw her hand going towards the tape and I kind of registered what she was about to do, I was like, I'm about to see something that I probably don't want to see.
I didn't know it'd be that gooey.
I was like, this is gonna be uncomfortable to look at, no matter what happens. So, when she started pulling out, and it was like, oh, there it is, there's the thing.
And it kept going.
And it kept going, and then it paused, like she was throwing up and pulling this disgusting thing out of her head.
And then the Wi-Fi froze on that image.
Yeah, and it was so upsetting.
Very cruel of the Wi-Fi.
Come on, Wi-Fi, get yourself together.
I know.
Get yourself together,
It's
man.
just
I'm cracking my
rude.
knuckles if you're wondering what the sound is.
But, I mean, the awkward pauses in the Wi-Fi just gave us time to reflect on the episodes, because there's a lot to reflect on every step of the way. And, I mean, you know, so as far as, like, the finale goes, absolutely one thing that was, you know, that was foreseen that did indeed go that way is Simon totally did not redeem himself. And, because I apparently heard some people thought maybe Simon would redeem himself, but honestly, after he murdered Tuba in cold blood,
Yeah.
you're not redeeming yourself after that. Come on,
Yeah.
that's a bridge too far.
So, kind of moving to the whole Void thing. That was just a crappy move on his part.
It was.
I mean, everything breathing is a crappy move on his part. Like, just please stop breathing. He did stop breathing. We got got our wish.
He took that note.
Actually, on that same note, not pun intended in relation to what you said, but I was rewatching the death scene on YouTube, and the top comment on this video was like, said, "Why is ASMR not in the title? This was so satisfying."
People didn't like Simon.
I wonder why.
He was the worst.
It's like Nora from The Flash, where it's
yes. Except this time they knew how unpleasant he was.
Unlike Nora, where they tried to. It's like in Glee as well. They tried to make Rachel seem like this cool person. It's like, no, she's horrible. What? Why is she the main character? Unfortunately, Rachel didn't die in Glee.
There just weren't any weird roach dogs in that.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was holding them back, man.
That was the only thing.
So I'm gonna hold
Maybe
them
for
back.
the reunion episode.
And no weird time junk that made Nora die.
I mean, we all know that the Flash, Glee, Infinity Train crossover is obviously inevitable.
It's just bound to happen.
It has to. It's gonna come straight to...
I mean, we already have some music in
Yes.
all three shows, especially Glee, but we already have some music in all three shows. People in Infinity Train can't sing, but that's a whole other thing to get into at a different time.
They're too talented at doing voice acting to also sing. That's the way it works.
Hazel had a decent voice. That was depressing. The funeral scene was depressing.
It was so sad.
We already talked about this.
And also, confirmed as well, Tuba never came back, so have to assume that, yeah, Tuba is just... gone.
Before we really get into the scene and everything with Simon, I do, you mentioned something, we were talking about potential future of Infinity Train. You mentioned something about the Ask Me Anything.
Yes.
There was an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, from my understanding, with the creator of Infinity Train.
Somebody essentially asked, if I recall, how did Amelia take control of the train in the first place? And the creator said, more or less, sounds like it would be a good subject for a movie.
Which is a very specific answer.
It is. And I will say, 100%, like, you know, if there is another book or a movie or whatever form, you know, continuation would take, I feel like previous seasons, it wouldn't always be intuitive, like, who would follow. This season, it would be incredibly weird for it to follow anybody except Amelia and Hazel at this point. Like, it seemed to very clearly set that up. And I think that would be a very good thing to
Also, like, wasn't
follow.
episode 7, like, the episode where Amelia really made, like, a comeback?
I don't know. I'd have to double check.
I think it was.
Possibly.
I think, from my understanding, she, like, popped up at the end of episode 6, and then, jump through the door and be like, what have you guys been doing to the cause? And then, in the next episode, was, like, when she was officially...
You might be right about that. You might be.
So, I think that is how it worked, if I remember correctly. So that would follow the whole, like, Lake was introduced in episode 7 of season 1. Grace, and whatnot, they're all, like, officially introduced in episode 7 of, season 2. And all this stuff.
Oh, and this is actually going back a little bit, but I just remembered it, so I did want to mention it real quick. So, in episode 9, when they were doing all the flashback stuff, we saw Grace's initial image and memories of how her meeting with, the conductor went, and her vision of the steward and its face reminded me a lot of the mask that she wore when she first appeared.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to bet it was.
I didn't make that connection, but I was like, that's not what the steward looked like.
Exactly.
What the hell?
But I bet that's why she had that mask and everything like that. Because the mask sort of seemed sort of like a weird part of her whole aesthetic at first.
Yeah.
But I bet that's, some weird little homage to the steward that she briefly saw, and which she thought was way more chill and friendly than it was.
Yeah. Also, I found it really interesting that the conductor that Amelia initially appeared as this big looming figure, but then, like, when she realized it was just, like,
Yeah.
there's probably much more significance to that, but that just reminds me of things, like, when I think of something when I was little, I'm like, that was so big, and I see the same thing now, and I'm like, that's really not all that different. Big. It's really not that big, Tyler.
Yeah, the memory of that episode did a good job of tapping into that sort of feeling there, and, yeah, I mean, you know, and of course set up for the big final episode where it was, you know, ridiculous how stupid the Apex got as soon as Simon was solely in charge. They were misguided before, of course, but
really just says a lot about Simon.
Yes. He made it so much worse so quickly.
Also, I like how he didn't really even fill them in on what a void is. Like,
yeah, he's just freestyling it.
Like he was like, what is a void? And you're like, false leader. And then he was like, yeah, what do we do to voids? And they all went dead quiet. And you're like, and then he's like, you gotta wheel her.
And I love how he just had moment after moment after moment to snap out of his horribleness, and instead he just kept
doubling
on.
Down.
And then, I mean, the whole part where he turned around and just full on just shoved Grace off the bridge. That was
especially after she had just
right after
saved
that.
him.
Yep, that was
I was like, come on, she just saved you after everything you've done, and you're still just.
That was chilling.
Also, was his hair always that big, or was just Grace stuck in her memories for a really long time?
That's a fair question.
Because I feel like his hair used to be, pretty short. It was, tied up a little bit, but I feel like it wasn't that big.
Maybe. I mean, with it being tied up in a different style, I could see it being a little hard to say. It could go either way, I think.
I'm like, how long was Grace stuck in her memories for? Because she was also in a completely different location when she woke up.
Yep, it's hard to say. It's very hard to say.
Anyways, there's a lot. I didn't think that Grace actually got wheeled. Because
I didn't think so.
They were very specific to have her, go around the wheel instead of into it, like Tuba.
I didn't think that they would kill her that way after, having killed Tuba and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was still, just a shocking moment for him to even have attempted that after what happened.
Come on. Also, his number got real high.
Yes, it did.
It was higher than even Amelia at the end of season 1.
Yeah, which is saying, and it also shows that the train is very unbiased actually, because the train. It's not like it boosted Amelia's more for turning against the train itself.
Yeah.
It just her number got real high because she did a lot of really bad things, but it was the actual turning on the train itself actually doesn't seem like that's was all that bad in the grand scheme of things. It judges Simon much more harshly and fairly for the absolutely monstrous way he treats others.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if we discussed. We might have asked this question in one of the previous podcasts, or it might have just been a little exchange between you and me, not on this podcast thingy that we've been recording. But I did at one point was oh, what would happen if the number went up to the face? How would that look? We got to know.
We saw
that. There are so many disturbing moments. In a weird way, I feel that scene with him getting it all the way up his face and the laughter and stuff was honestly kind of more disturbing than his death, because that was just him. That wasn't overtly his body melting and coming apart. That was just him being absolute psychopath.
Oh, it was genuinely a disturbing just how how monstrous and far gone he was there.
Yeah.
That's why that's why it effectively shocked me so much, him trying to kill Grace. Not that I thought Grace actually died in that moment, but just that he would do that. My God. And the train agreed. Look how much it bumped his number up after that.
He was wow. Also good. Now we need to discuss the scene.
Yes.
The scene. So it's like a thing where with Mace's death, I knew spoilers. I had seen online, I had seen pictures, I had seen a few snapshots, and I knew he was gonna die. So I was like, okay, I'm ready for the graphicness. This, on the other hand, I had not had spoiled for me, and also, He's an actual person and not made of metal, which is just another layer. Like, even if they did this with a metal person, it would still be more disturbing than Mace's death. But the fact that they did this with a human being...
They did. And they didn't just show, like, the legs kicking and then melting away. That you full on get to see is, like, his eyeballs melting away and sinking into their sockets.
Yeah, and then him decomposing down to his skeleton, and then his skeleton melting down to just a lump of weird goo.
It was rough. And then... And what are weird roach dogs called again?
Gomes.
Gomes. And then the Gome had a weird reaction and then exploded into, like, blue poofs.
Yeah.
What did that mean?
What did what mean?
It exploding. Why did it explode?
Maybe Simon was just so evil.
That's why I'm curious. Like, is that what it means?
I have no clue.
Because that's honestly like the thing I'm just wondering about the most, and just like the most curious about. Like, that's the biggest question I'm left with. Is just why did it explode?
Maybe it's like depends on how high the number is, and it's also sad thinking that because of what we saw with Atticus, that thing probably at one point was like a perfectly normal like denizen.
It's possible. Who knows?
Yeah. Or like
raises a lot of questions.
Maybe even a corgi. Who knows? We can't know because it's dead now.
Yes, and we can see like it sort of turned like weirdly transparent right before it exploded. And I actually rewatched the scene, and we paused right when it sort of turns transparent to sort of see if we could see inside.
I just randomly remembered the Burger King incident. We're not getting into this right now.
It is amazing though, but off topic. There'll be a separate episode.
No, I might just go on like my Instagram story. Just know we saw a really weird interaction outside of Burger King. Anyways, I don't know why I got randomly popped into my head again.
I mean, it's a day of seeing two weird sights. A giant roach absorbing somebody's soul and making them melt and then exploding. Which takes second place behind what we saw at Burger King.
Oh, yeah.
As far as weird things.
The thing at Burger King was really weird. Anyways.
But, yeah, so, what exactly meant with it exploding, and also like just, why exploding into like a weird blue poofiness? Like, it seemed like a very specific, strange thing.
I feel like blue is kind of like a train thing, because like, if you remember Stewart's like fire is also blue.
Maybe. I'm very curious about it exploding. Like,
like, the gums aren't a thing off the chain. Also, another significance with the color blue, Alan Dracula turned blue. In the first episode he was in, when he was hanging out with, like...
Well, Alan Dracula turned into everything, though.
He turned blue.
He turned everything
He could have turned any color, and he turned blue. Just saying. He could have turned literally any color, except for, like, brown, because he already is brown, and he turned blue.
I don't know.
Just saying.
I don't know.
Just saying.
I'm pondering the whole Gome exploding into weird blue poofiness. That seemed very meaningful, very strange. Also, do you think there's any significance to the fact that Simon melted so much quicker than anybody else who's been attacked by a Gome?
It literally could just be for, like, time's sake.
Exactly. It's sort of thing where I'm not, like, saying, like, oh, it's a plot hole or anything. Even if it was not, like, a big intentional decision, I get it. Pacing, timing-wise, that's fine. It's just that the show is so well thought out that I feel it's also possible that maybe there's more to it.
It could have had something to do with his numbers.
Exactly.
Because, like
it's possible,
even, like, earlier in that same, like, scene, like, it started to go at Grace's hand, and her hand didn't decompose or anything.
Exactly. So I feel like it might almost be a situation where, you know, they feast on, maybe they sort of, like, you know, feast on people, like, the higher their number is, and maybe it explodes just because, like, Simon was too big of a meal, basically.
Too big of a meal.
Yeah.
They did show significance, because they kept thinking that the Apex was in, like, the next card, and it was revealed that it was just Amelia with a really big number.
Yeah.
So, kind of like the same thing, where it's like, is it, like, a bunch of things, or is it just, like, this one thing with a really high number? Like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm. So I just, you know, I don't know what it all means. But I'm very, very curious. And
also, we do gotta discuss the actual ending.
We do.
With Grace and the new Apex, I'm pretty sure is what it was called, because the title was...
That's what it's called,
Apex.
but I actually think that the new Apex was referring more to them under Simon's, because it seems like she was all about not calling them the Apex anymore at the end. So, and I think that's good, Grace, again.
Or it could have a double meaning, be like
Absolutely.
Simon's and then Grace's new version of their team.
But, they're obviously, even if they do come with another team name, it probably won't be Apex anymore since that's got some loaded history at this point.
Oh boy. Yeah, also, all those kids need therapy now.
They do, but
because they just witnessed...
They witnessed
a lot. They witnessed a lot. Honestly, I feel like watching your previous leader decompose and melt and die after going completely insane probably hits like the top 5.
Yeah, but also, if nothing else, at least, now they have, instead of, Simon and Grace back when Grace was a terrible person, they now have Grace as their sole leader, and more importantly, Grace now is a good person. It was that sort of thing where I really don't think she became a genuinely good person until the final episode, but over the course of this season, she absolutely did make the transformation. I think it was well-paced. It had lots of, a series of good, powerful moments where it never felt like just an abrupt, yes, she's a good person now. It was, a painful start and stopping process, but by the end of it all, she absolutely did, show that she has grown and developed tremendously as a person and is, just has accepted her own mistakes and all sorts of stuff and just has lots of perspective, and I'm sure we'll be able to help get all those kids smartened up, get their numbers down, try to right the wrongs she did, and also, at the rate her numbers going down already, I'm sure she will be off the train before too much longer.
Speaking of redemptions.
Yes.
I watched Love, Victor. This is kind of off topic.
Kind of.
But it just reminded me. Again, not going to go into it because it's very off topic. But just there were 2 characters that kind of had redemptions. One of them was a guy named Andrew, and it was like a subtle thing throughout the series, and I feel like it was well done. The other one was Lake, and I hated Lake, and I still hate Lake, and her redemption is nonsense. Garbage.
Wait, so there's a lake in this other show?
Yes.
Not to be confused with the lake in the show this is about?
Yeah.
Confusing.
But this Lake is horrible.
Boo.
The other Lake was definitely not a good person, because the other Lake is just unlikable.
Because, at least Infinity Train Lake was troubled, but a liking
she was a
character.
mess. But I didn't actively hate her.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, she's like my favorite character. She still might be my favorite character. I need some time to process from the finale.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to think over who my favorite character throughout the first 3 seasons would be.
Who's your favorite character in Season 1?
Atticus.
Mine would be 1-1. Season 2?
Lake.
Mine would also be Lake. Season 3?
I liked everybody except Simon.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine anybody choosing Simon.
Unless they have just completely lost it.
I'm gonna say Grace, just because I think she was incredibly well done character. Like her flaws were very, realistically portrayed and consistent, and seeing her grow out of them and accept her mistakes and everything was really just kind of expertly handled. I think it was a really good job, and it just was very mature and willing to be kind of sad with its handling of it, and destroying the respect and trust that Hazel had in her, and also that being maybe the final wake up call she needed, sort of thing, to finish her her road to becoming an actually good person. I think she was incredibly well done, and even though she was frustrating and very, very flawed, by the end, I said, she was a
was
good.
Also very flawed.
Yes, but I feel like Grace is the character whose who's shown like the most character development out of anybody in the show so far, I think, actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I really like Tuba. I'm tempted to say
Tuba's
Tuba,
great.
but she did also die like halfway through the season, so I feel like we didn't really see enough of her to be like, she's my favorite character.
Yeah, like,
if we're excluding Tuba, then probably Hazel. I really liked Hazel's whole arc.
Hazel was awesome, like, and both Tuba and Hazel were wonderful, and certainly she's like much more straight up likable than Grace was.
Yeah.
And very incredibly well done, and like especially like again, the show does so much with such a short runtime, and all those characters got so much interesting little insights and touches.
I gotta say, after the first 5 episodes, I really didn't like Hazel when she like first showed up. I found her really annoying. I was like, oh, it's an annoying little kid. Ugh. But I really came around to the Hazel.
Hazel was a really good character.
Maybe it's because she got this whole arc and wasn't just an annoying little kid.
Yeah.
No clue, but I really came around to Hazel, and I am really mad at Simon for killing Tuba because she was such a good character.
Another thing, like, a little kid character is tricky to pull off because they can oftentimes just be obnoxious or like you tell they're trying too hard to make them adorable and it's just like ugh. But
that's what I was kind of getting a vibe from Hazel in the first few episodes. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, but she ended up having a lot of depth and like her singing that little "Don't Be a Worry, Baby" song was just
You're evil.
Devastating.
You're evil,
it
Fogger.
Was devastating.
Don't be a worry, baby. You gotta hurry, baby, when you're with me.
Tuba!
Just take it easy, squeezy, my little lemon squeezy. You're forever with me.
Oh, I really hope that Amelia ends up,
being a better person.
Yes, because Hazel deserves to have another good parental figure after Tuba.
I was kind of expecting for Grace to actually get an exit by the end, because her number was like very rapidly going down towards the end.
It was. I do think though that both like in terms of like her personal responsibility and also just like thematically in the show, it would be unfair for her to get her exit before all the kids she kind of roped into her nonsense got their exits.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thankfully for them, their numbers probably weren't nearly
exactly.
They weren't nearly as high as
even the closing
anyone else.
Even the closing shot, I think, was her just like looking out as all their numbers were like glowing because they were all lowering, before her very eyes. So I don't think I think that she still has a little bit of a road to finish making amends. Because also just keep in mind too that even though her number dropped enormously, it seems like the number kind of speeds up and slows down to some degree when it gets to the really high amounts. Yeah. Because, like, hers dropped enormously, while just think about how long it took, like, some of the characters in the first 2 seasons to get their numbers down. Yeah. So, even if hers is down to a realistic amount now, that still gives her plenty of time to try to set things right. Yes.
His, when he first entered, he was like, oh, it was only 31. Even Tulip, hers was, in the hundreds when she first got on the train, but Jessie was like, yeah, it was 31. And it's like, that's a real low number, especially when you see people like Simon,
yes,
who have it all the way up to their face.
Yep.
Heavy stuff.
It really was, and yeah.
Would it even qualify as a kid's show anymore after that really disturbing sight?
I feel like, yes, just barely. But it's definitely a kids show that does not sugarcoat things or go easy on the audience.
Or on the eyes.
I
have seen some things. I've seen things. I've seen them with my eyes.
But yeah, I mean, excellent stuff, and really, and genuinely, Simon. It's something
we should try to go in the fandom and try to get more Infinity Train trending on Twitter.
Yes, because I want more Infinity Train. Because it's so good.
Hashtag Infinity Train Book 4. Now. Yes. I want it
Make
now.
it happen.
The hashtag is, give us more Infinity Train Book 4 or we will steal and eat your kneecaps in front of you. That's the entire hashtag.
I mean, I think it's a point across. And I just, one thing I do just want to reiterate one last time before we wrap things up is just, as has been confirmed several times in the earlier little recordings we did, I knew that Simon was going to be a villain for the rest of the season. I knew he was not going to get like a neat, tidy little redemption arc. I knew he was awful, and I expected him to stay awful and everything. But it is a testament to the show and how well done it is, and just how good is it like at igniting emotions in people, that I was still absolutely shocked and like viscerally horrified by the depths of Simon's villainy in the final 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Like both, just leaving Grace behind, all creepily zoned out in her own memories.
Oh yeah, that was
so cold and so chilling. And then of course, like all the extravagant, villainy going on in the final episode is just like him laughing maniacally with all the numbers covering his face,
going all the way up his face
after shoving Grace off the bridge. Like that was
trying to kill her. I mean, thankfully she didn't.
Exactly, not for lack of trying on his part. Yeah, like that was
also
legitimately disturbing and very well done.
Galil reflective origami swan gave me trust issues.
Yes.
I'm like, I can't trust reflections in a show. Somebody pointed out a thing in season 1 that was like kind of weird, where there's a part in the final episode where Tulip walks by a mirror and her reflection is there. She has a reflection.
What does it all mean?
What does it all mean?
That is a fair point. I don't know whether that would make... Yeah, like, it would be kind of weird if she returned to her normal life and she suddenly actually did not have a reflection anymore.
Yeah.
That's why I feel
also,
like...
why... What?
Like I said, I think it's a weird situation where the rules of the Infinity Train mirror stuff both existed and didn't exist in the outside world. It's weird. It's a weird train.
I don't trust.
It's got weird rules.
We should quickly revisit some theories that we had.
Certainly.
So what were some theories that we had?
Unfortunately, the only specific ones I can think of is I mentioned how I thought Tuba might come back. Obviously, did not happen. And you know what? It's sort of thing where even though it is,
we did think that Amelia would come back.
Yes, and that was
the whole turtle thing.
Yeah, but
and we were right. We were like
absolutely.
Also, even you were like. You had a theory, I'm pretty sure, in like the first thing that we did, where you're like, what if like Hazel was like a failed experiment and like recreating Ulrich or something? Hit it on the head right there. That's exactly what she was, according to Amelia.
And even though Amelia's redemption is still in the early goings, I did hope that maybe she would become a parental figure to Hazel and take responsibility. And that's at least in like step 1 of several thousand. At this point, anyway, so that's
literally,
at least going.
Look at how big her number is.
Yes, but it's at least going in that direction, which is nice.
God, how would you even calculate how high the number is?
I don't even know.
Like that's some advanced math.
It is.
Like once you like go up, just like all the way up your forearm, you're like Jesus.
That is a big number at that point.
Decillions?
At least, yeah.
That kind of just clicked in my mind how high the actual like number itself would be.
Ridiculously huge at that point. It's weird.
Samantha, numbers are numbers.
Samantha! And as far as Tuba actually being dead goes, I mean, I did feel like there was a chance. Yes.
In your two-brain down, you give love a bad name, bad name. A bad name. Anyways, we can continue.
But
I
understand. I understand. And yes, it's a thing where, I could see it going either way, and sure enough, it went the way that Tuba is indeed dead. And it's a bittersweet thing, but because of course I didn't want Tuba to be dead, but also as well, I don't like it when shows or stories in general just make a habit of pretending to kill characters, get big feelings and stuff, but then don't follow through on it. It kind of feels like backing out or being cowardly with the storytelling.
I am glad that Atticus came back, though.
Yes.
That is like one of the few examples where I'm actually okay with them doing it. Because if Atticus would have just stayed dead, I would have been heartbroken.
It would have been just... And this time, it did happen, and I was heartbroken!
Especially since, like... With, like, Tuba, that's, like, a main character did that. If that was just, like, the steward killed Atticus and he stayed dead, I would have been like, that's just unfair.
It was actually Amelia with that weird gun thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just... It's terrible, and, yeah, I mean, so it's the third sort of thing where I'm not glad that Tuba died, but I'm glad that the writers had the conviction and courage to tell the story that they felt needed to be told with Tuba. You know, so it was very effectively heartbreaking. Oh, God. I feel this is devolving. Anyway. So, I can't think of any other specific theories. Like, I know I went on some stuff about things. I got a lot of details wrong, of course, as I expected, but I was, at least right about the general flow of, Simon. Although I did expect Hazel to remain a key component to the story to the end. That was something that caught me off guard, actually, like Hazel,
left.
Piecing out.
Peace, you guys suck, I'm leaving.
Yep, I think that's what made it so effective, too, is that Grace was shocked as well. Like, Grace felt so sentimental, but realized that because of her behavior, Hazel just kind of hated her, and with good reason.
In a weird way, that kind of is like Atticus's death, because when he did transform into a gun, like, he didn't, like, care what he was doing, because he was like...
He's gone!
He was just done. Unlike with Jesse, where he, like, actively tried to get back on the train and whatnot.
Yep.
Atticus was just like, I'm uncomfortable with how much I've missed.
But yes,
Infinity Train is so good.
It's an incredibly good show. I am very, very much hoping there will be more in whatever form they want it to take.
It's, like, definitely one of the best of, like, the new Cartoon Network shows.
Oh, its storytelling is incredible. Its character work is incredible. It's fantastic.
Like, maybe even the best, because I know Amazing World Gumball ended a while ago. Also, Infinity Train is better than Gumball. But also, like, I don't even know if I would count Steven Universe Future as, like, a new series, because it was kind of just, like...
Yeah, it was an epilogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, out of, like, the new shows, like, what we have? Apple and Onion...
And Apple and Onions, that's a charming, amusing show.
Apple and Onion's great.
Yes,
I'm not trying to, like, besmirch the title of Apple and Onion.
Yes, but it's, in terms of, like, artistic ambitions, Infinity Train is obviously going for something higher and pulling it off brilliantly.
Yeah, so I'm going to go on record that if we're not counting the Steven Universe Future, my favorite of the newer Cartoon Network shows, even though it's on HBO Max now, still.
Yeah.
My point still stands!
And it is glorious, and I very much look forward to whatever comes next, and I hope that what comes next is book 4. Because I
better be something next, or a movie, because of that comment. That would be cool.
Oh yes, and like Amelia is a compelling character, and I especially would be curious to see how things go for Hazel as well, and their dynamic. Yes. And that is something that, and again, and also just going back real quick, I was like, how are they gonna make the Apex likable characters? And they completely pulled off with them being compelling by not even actually trying to make them likable. It somehow did a weird thing where it, pulled it off having,
literally one of the main characters turn into an irredeemable monster.
Yes, and the other main character, dropping the ball and not doing the right, honest, brave thing over and over and over again, but still completely made it work, and, it was a deeply engaging story that I felt super emotionally invested in and had some incredible moments.
Lake also was not nearly perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Lake did so many bad things. Like, not even just Mace's death. Honestly, in the next episode alone, she did 3 things that were, like, way worse than killing Mace. Like, stealing a pod from that guy and then just leaving him outside the train.
Yeah.
With no clue what the hell was happening. Trying to steal that girl's number, and then when that didn't work, bashing a bunch of robots that could have been sentient.
For all she knew.
We don't know. I'm pretty sure she even made a remark earlier in the season where she was like, "It's not alive," and Jesse was like, "Do you know that?" And she was like, "Fair point."
Yep.
It's like, take your own advice, lady. Anyways.
But they, once again, I had faith, even though I hated the Apex, I had faith that the show would find a way to pull it off, and by God they did, because Infinity Train is brilliant, and
great show.
I want it to just keep going.
Forever and ever and
Forever and ever.
Forever and ever and ever and ever.
The nature of the show,
Ever
and it's like weird anthology style, they could keep it going forever.
Good villain, good Edgar guy in Riverdale who went off on a rocket, his last name was Evernever. Edgar Evernever.
That sucks, but I love it.
And then there was another one. I'm pretty sure her name was Evelyn, which means her name was Evelyn Ever Never.
Again, that sucks, but I love it. But yes, so again, I really feel like, the show has a great format as well.
I like how we got like 50 minutes of discussion out of 2 episodes, and the last one, which was 3 episodes, when it got 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, this is the finale. It's big doings, and I just want to say, like, the format of the show is brilliant because the characters the show is literally all about characters undergoing character development, and also it never falls into the trap that some shows would run into running long, where the characters either sort out their issues, which is like good for them, but then they're kind of like lack the conflict that made them compelling to follow, or they fall in the other trap where they just keep on never solving their problems, in which case it just feels like, come on, man, people, just like get over it, like just start actually, stop sucking in the same way.
I really wish Tulip was more interesting.
Yeah, but that's it.
People love Tulip. That's not. Yes. I know she has her own fan base. I'm not trying to like bash Tulip. Perfectly good person, not very interesting character.
Yeah, but that's like other characters have had gotten to change enormously, and then it moves on to a new character, and like it always finds new characters to follow each season, which I think is a great way of doing it.
Even like in her first appearance, like was like, I'm leaving you behind in your world. Anyways.
But yes. So thank you very much for listening to us talk about Infinity Train.
We going
and
Infinity
Train rules.
Yeah.